3 things I've learned from 6 years on a ketogenic diet. Back in 2013, started playing around with a ketogenic diet. In fact, I dove right in. When I started out, I first initially became interested in a ketogenic diet because I was using intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting is when you eat within a restricted window of the day. Really simple concept, helps a lot of people to burn fat. Also, a lot of people seem to have improved cognition, right, and improved mood during the fasting window. What I ended up realizing was that I felt a little bit suboptimal after I would get my meal in. All right, so I was waiting till late in the day to have my meal. I was having about 1 meal a day, sometimes 2 meals a day. And I was losing body fat. I was feeling great, but as soon as I had that meal, I would crash a little bit. All right, so even though I was relatively lean and fit and in shape, I still had some significant insulin resistance. My body, through improper use of carbohydrates over the years, just wasn't seeming to handle them so well, and I felt suboptimal eating them. I realized through some research that a ketogenic diet actually maintains and mimics that fasting state for an extended period of time. The reason many of us feel so good when we're fasting is partially due to the changes in neurochemistry that come along with the state of ketosis, where our body is breaking down fatty acids, breaking down fat, and turning them into what are called ketones. All right, so the liver is going to break down that fat, turn it into ketone bodies. Much of your body and brain can run very efficiently on ketones. In fact, ketones are actually a cleaner burning fuel, meaning there's less oxidative stress, less damage to the cells through the use of ketones than there is when we use glucose. Now, I realized that this state could be maintained using diet. When you restrict carbohydrates or when you're fasting, your body's going to get into ketosis. A carb-restricted diet will lead to a state where you're burning fat as your primary fuel source. Of course, your body still uses some glucose, which it can create through a process called gluconeogenesis. Through gluconeogenesis, your body makes glucose out of both proteins and the backbone of fatty acids, which is glycerol. So, I felt so much better instantly when I started a ketogenic diet. Of course, there's an adaptation phase. And over the last 6 years, I've coached over 1,000 people. Shoot, it might even be upwards of 2,000 people. But what I have learned is kind of surprising. And there are 3 surprising things I'm going to share with you today about a ketogenic diet that I've learned through implementing it both on myself, helping many family and friends also use a ketogenic diet, and also through coaching thousands of people. In our Keto and Carnivore Collective, we're doing group coaching. It's our community coaching setup. We do it every month. It's actually really cool. There's a link down in the description below. We get a lot of data, right? We see a lot of people from all walks of life in private coaching and in our community coaching. And it's really cool to see just how amazing this tool is for transforming people's bodies, immune system, their health, and helping them take control of their habits and of their relationship with food. So here's 3 things that surprised me about keto that I've learned over the last 6 years. Number 1, animal foods are the foundation of a properly formulated and well-implemented and sustainable ketogenic diet. Whether you choose to go the carnivore route, which many people that we've been working with have been gravitating towards carnivore since we've been putting out a lot of information about a carnivorous ketogenic diet for the last couple years now. Whether you're using a carnivore approach or a ketogenic diet including some plants, it is very important to understand the necessity of protein and fat and the high bioavailability, the high vitamin and mineral content, and the nutrient density that animal foods bring. Animal foods cannot be replicated in a lab. Animal foods cannot be replicated in a soy-based, soylent slop Beyond Burger. Animal foods are absolutely necessary for human health and longevity. And on a ketogenic diet, you're not going to do very well if you try to do it without animal foods. A vegan keto diet is one of the quickest ways to burn out on keto and trash your body. So animal foods are the foundation of a ketogenic diet. In fact, many people find that after a few years on keto, that they gravitate towards a carnivore diet. Why is this? Why is it that it's hard to get kids to eat broccoli? Why is it that it's hard to get you to eat spinach? Right? You gotta have cartoon characters propagandizing you to make you think spinach is cool. Why is it that human beings prefer animal foods to plant foods in their natural environment? Why is it that so many, every single indigenous culture, every single tribal community, before contact with the Western world, before contact with what Weston A. Price in his book Nutrition and Physical Degeneration called the foods of commerce, why is it that they all self-select to eat primarily animal foods? Well, your body knows what it's doing. Your body knows what it's doing when it craves a nice fatty ribeye steak. Animal foods provide all the nutrients we need in their most bioavailable form, in the most easily digestible form, without the accompanying plant toxins, anti-nutrients, and irritating fiber. So animal products, animal foods rather, little slip there, right? Because these processed junk food, plant foods, that's products. We eat animal foods, whole unrefined foods. Animal foods are the foundation of a ketogenic diet, and you can make your ketogenic diet based on exclusively animal foods. In fact, many people long-term find that that's what works optimal for them. So we're not about shoving this down your throat. We're about helping you find what's optimal in your situation. About helping you find what works in your life. Doesn't matter what works for me, doesn't matter what works for my wife. What matters is what works in your body, what works in your context. And it's amazing how many people have found that after years on a ketogenic diet, that a carnivorous keto approach is absolutely amazing. So not only are the plants perhaps not necessary, a lot of us might feel a lot better without them. So we've got a lot of information on the channel here about a carnivorous keto approach. Make sure to check out our website, primaledgehealth.com, and check out the Carnivore Cookbook, which we just released. It's a carnivorous ketogenic cookbook. The Carnivore Cookbook is available exclusively at primaledgehealth.com and thecarnivorecookbook.com. But animal foods are crucial for a ketogenic diet. Plant foods are just not necessary. You know what I've actually noticed too is with coaching so many people, I find that when people are including plant foods, especially while adapting to this diet and in the first few months, they tend to have a lot more issues with electrolyte imbalance. Very, very interesting concept there. Electrolytes very important when we were getting adapted to keto, so increasing your salt intake is usually taking care of that for people when they're on a carnivorous approach. While when they're including plants, some people find that their magnesium, their potassium levels seem to be a little bit off kilter. Now, this could be due to anti-nutrients in foods, such as oxalate, which actually binds the calcium, magnesium, and potassium. And there's a lot of oxalate in foods like spinach and almonds. So while on paper they might look like they have a lot of nutrition, a lot of these minerals are being bound up by oxalate. In fact, calcium, when it binds the oxalate creates calcium oxalate kidney stones in a lot of people. Those calcium oxalate crystals that it creates can actually lodge up in our kidneys, can actually disrupt thyroid function, disrupt brain function, and create an inflammatory response in the body. So the plants might not be as awesome as we think. I'm definitely not a proponent of trying to get 10 servings of leafy green vegetables in per day. I definitely lean towards the carnivorous approach, especially when coaching clients now and realizing just how beneficial this is for so many people. So myself, I eat a diet based around animal foods. Do you have to? No, but you can, and you might want to try it. All right, so the next thing that I find very, very interesting, the second most surprising thing I've learned in 6 years on a ketogenic diet is that carbs are not bad. All right, now, I never really demonized carbohydrates on this channel. I was never under the opinion that carbohydrates were inherently bad for everybody. But a lot of people in the keto world tend to look at carbs as the devil. Now, I understand. If you're overweight, if you're obese, if you've got type 2 diabetes, poor blood glucose control, and you're shoving down those carbs all the time, you're eating the ice cream, which is high in fat and high in carbs, and overeating junk food with the refined seed oils, it might seem like those carbohydrates are creating all the damage. But there's a lot more going on, which we talk about on this channel quite a bit. Carbohydrates are not the enemy. It's about context. If you've damaged your metabolism, realize, first of all, it's not permanent, right? And that term metabolic damage is actually very bothersome to me. I shouldn't even use it. But If you damaged your body through high carbohydrate intake over the years, if you've been eating a lot of the refined seed oils, these omega-6, polyunsaturated fatty acid oils, if you've been eating a lot of junk food, those carbs might not be doing you very good at this point. All right, if you want to lose body fat, restriction of carbohydrates is one of the most powerful things you can do. But carbs are not the enemy. They have their place for intense glycolytic activity, right? High-level athletes. Or just weekend warriors who are really busting their ass, like out there playing football or something, or soccer, right? So when I play soccer here, I live in Ecuador, so it's like the sport of South America, and I find that I function much better when I increase my carbohydrate intake around the games, right? So the targeted use of carbohydrate can bring great results. A lot of lifters, a lot of people who are trying to put on lean muscle mass find that the use of carbohydrates is very effective. All right, so carbs aren't bad, but we definitely don't need as many as we think we need. Carbohydrates are not the enemy, they are a tool. Just like ketosis is a tool, carbohydrates are a tool, and when used properly in the right context, right, for heavy glycolytic activity, high-level athletes, you're never going to see a high-level MMA athlete going into a fight without carbohydrates. You're never going to see a high-level boxer doing his training in an extremely carb-restricted state. These athletes understand what their body needs, and the body can function very well with carbohydrates in their proper context. So don't be afraid of carbs forever. You might get to a point when you become insulin sensitive and more lean, you can use those carbohydrates intelligently. And if you use the right types of carbs at the right time, you can still maintain great body composition, insulin sensitivity, and shoot, if you're timing those carbs correctly, you might still find that you're in ketosis most of the time. All right, so when I use carbohydrates, it's usually around workouts and intense activity, or if I'm trying to gain weight. Carbohydrates are a tool. Use them as such. You don't need to use every single tool all the time. Just because you feel great on a ketogenic diet doesn't mean that you need to avoid carbs forever. So, the third surprising thing I've learned on a ketogenic diet, this thing is something that a lot of people trip up on, especially newbies, especially beginners. And that is that ketones are not the goal. So we don't really need to be pursuing ketones as an end game. A lot of people are pricking themselves with a little blood glucometer, putting their blood into the little gigapet, and it's telling them a number. Right? They have no idea what the context is. Right? They're measuring at different times of the day without understanding that there is a circadian rhythm to ketone production. Right? Our body's going to make more or less ketones depending on the context, depending on the time of day, and depending on what we're doing. So chasing ketones is not the goal. If you're trying to lose body fat, if you're trying to balance your blood glucose levels, constantly measuring your ketones to try to see if you're successful can lead down some really confusing rabbit holes. People will see that, I'm only 0.5. I was told that I've got to be far beyond 0.5. I've got to be at like 3.0 beta-hydroxybutyrate in my blood. And they get freaked out. High ketones are not indicative of metabolic health. Think about glucose. Are you measuring your blood glucose, and when you're on a glycolytic diet, right? If you're on a glucose-based diet, and your metabolism is primarily based on glucose, are you going to measure your blood sugar and say, oh, goody, this is awesome. I've got high blood sugar. I must be successful. Absolutely not. So why is it that we assume that we should have super high, crazy elevated, fasting level ketones all the time? Doesn't really make sense to me. Now, there are benefits to elevated ketones, and a lot of people who are using a ketogenic diet for something like epilepsy, right, or neurodegenerative diseases find that higher blood ketone levels actually are useful. But if you're trying to lose body fat, if you're trying to change body composition, chasing ketones all the time, not really necessary. You'd be better off measuring your blood glucose levels and making sure your blood glucose is stable throughout the day. There are other biomarkers that are more interesting. And if you're trying to lose body fat, the scale or your waist measurement is going to tell you a lot more than your blood ketone levels. So ketones are not indicative of success on a ketogenic diet. You're going to have ketones, don't worry, but don't spend so much time, money, and energy measuring them all the time. In fact, most people, when I'm working with clients, I don't care what their blood ketone levels are. Right? We're going to measure success by actually measuring their progress towards their goals. I mean, it's a really simple concept. Pursue your goals. Don't pursue high ketone levels. If your goal is improved body composition, improved cognition, less reliance on exogenous insulin, measure those. Don't worry about what your blood ketone meter says. You know what else is very interesting is over the years, I've seen a trend in people that are on a long-term ketogenic diet tend to have slightly lower blood ketones than people who are just starting the diet out. Or if you're just starting out on keto, your body is not able to efficiently use those ketones. We have to generate more mitochondria. We have to increase our mitochondrial density to actually use those ketones and to burn fat, right? Whereas glucose doesn't require mitochondria. In the beginning, your body is sometimes flooded with ketones. People are peeing on those little pee strips, which are actually basically useless. And they're just measuring the ketones that their body is not using, the excess ketones that their body is spitting out. So don't worry so much about peeing on your fingers and little pee strips. Don't worry so much about feeding the little gigapets with your blood. Be more concerned with your progress towards the goals that you're trying to achieve with a ketogenic diet than you are with your blood ketone levels. Blood ketones are not indicative of metabolic health. In fact, super elevated blood ketones, a lot of people find that they don't feel as good when they have super elevated blood ketones as they do when they're in that range of like 0.5 to 2.0. So don't worry so much about the ketones. Measure your progress. So there you go. 3 things that surprised me after 6 years of using a ketogenic diet. And you can find more at primaledgehealth.com if you're interested in learning more about a carnivorous ketogenic diet or a ketogenic diet, including some plants. Check out our Keto and Carnivore Collective. It's a way that we do coaching, which allows us to use a community setting. We do 2 live interactive voice chats per week. One of those is a lesson, and then there's a Q&A at the end of the lesson, and then we do a live Q&A also once a week. So that's 2 meetings per week. You get more time than you do if you're doing, private consultations, which I still do, but I prefer people go into the community, the Keto and Carnivore Collective community coaching, because we have a community aspect. You get more one-on-one time with your coaches, Jessica and I, and it's just such a fun setting for doing coaching. All right, you're able to support each other as well as receive the support of your coaches. So you can find more at primaledgehealth.com. There's a link down in the bio below. Check out the Ketogenic Edge cookbook, as well as the Carnivore cookbook, which is available now exclusively at primaledgehealth.com. So get off the computer, get off your phone, get off the social media, get out there and live your life. You're way more than what you eat.